If you're considering raising pastured pigs, this may be the most important video you ever watch. We're tackling one of the most frequently asked questions about raising pigs on pasture. How often should I move my pigs? With expertise from Grassroots Farmers Cooperative and our own pig production specialist, Christine Hernandez, we're explaining every single thing you'll ever need to know about moving pastured pigs from paddock to paddock. You've got questions, and we've got answers. So get ready for the ultimate guide to moving pigs on pasture.
We're discussing when to move pigs to new paddocks, how to move pigs for rotational grazing, how to provide feed and water to pigs on pasture, how to care for used paddocks, and more. Stick around until the end of this video to find out how you can download our most valuable resource for pastured pig production to make paddock moves even easier.
Now let's get started.
Hi, I'm Christine Hernandez, and I've been raising pigs on pasture for 6 years here at Heifer USA. Over the years, I've taught thousands of people how to raise pasture pigs, and often the first question they ask is, how do you prevent pigs from tearing up your land? And that's a great question. Pigs are notorious for trampling, rooting, digging, and creating a muddy mess. So they can cause significant damage and devaluation to pastures when they're not managed properly. However, as a regenerative farm, we know that we can manage pigs in a way that actually benefits the soil and improves the land where we raise them. Many areas that aren't ideal for raising cattle, sheep, and poultry are perfect for pigs. For example, we raise pigs in pastures full of pine trees here at Heifer USA. These areas have too many trees for us to raise our ruminants and poultry here, but they provide a perfect spot for our pig paddocks and allow us to make use of even more of our farmland. The key to raising pigs regeneratively is simple: movement. Pigs are creatures of habit. No matter how much land you give them, they will always frequent certain areas like wallows, shady spots, and places where feeders and waters are located. Even if the pigs have 20 acres available for grazing, they will create paths within the paddock that they repeatedly travel. Our pigs frequently walk the perimeter of the fence and the paths between their feeders and waters, which can cause problems if the pigs are left in one paddock for too long. The good news is that there's a super simple solution to this problem, and it's the basis of any good regenerative pig production operation. Rather than providing one wide open pasture, we split our land into multiple paddocks. As the pigs move between these smaller sections, they provide minimal, manageable amounts of animal impact and allow previously used paddocks to rest and regenerate new native grasses and plants over time.
But how often do the pigs move? And how big should each paddock be? Let's dig into some important numbers for pastured pig production. The first important number is our stocking rate. This refers to the number of pigs we can raise on a certain amount of land. For grassroots farmers, we follow a stocking rate of 50 pigs per half acre. For this video, let's imagine we're raising a batch of 100 pigs. With 100 pigs, each paddock will need to be at least 1 acre. Paddocks come in all shapes and sizes, but for our land, the most efficient use of space is dividing each pasture into long rectangular strips, like this. Now we need to consider how many paddocks we'll need throughout the time that the pigs are on the ranch.
Typically, our pigs will live on pasture full-time for 4 to 5 months before they reach their goal weight of 320 pounds and go to processing. During that time, they'll typically move from paddock to paddock every 5 to 10 days, though they may need to be moved more frequently. We'll talk more about when to move pigs later in this video. After the pigs leave a paddock, the area will need between 45 and 60 days of rest before we can move pigs back into the paddock.
This period of rest is incredibly important to the regenerative model. During this time, all the organic matter left behind by the pigs is incorporated into the soil. Native grasses and plants will begin to grow back. The land will not only heal, but actually improve as a result of the pigs' impact. Along with our batch of 100 pigs, let's imagine we have 10 acres of suitable land to raise our pastured pigs on. Using our estimates of moving pigs every 5 to 10 days and allowing land to rest for 45 to 60 days, our paddock setup could look something like this. With 10 paddocks each measuring 1 acre, we should have enough land allotted for frequent paddock moves and adequate rest time. With more land, you can create more paddocks, allowing for longer periods of rest for your pastures. Or you can raise more pigs per batch. If you have 15 acres of land split into 10 paddocks of 1.5 acres each, you could raise 150 pigs at a time. Now that we've got our paddock layout ready, let's discuss how often we should move our pigs from one paddock to the next.
For lots of livestock, it's possible to create a grazing plan up to a year in advance, like the holistic planned grazing chart we use to manage our cattle and sheep. With pastured pigs, however, we can't just rely on a calendar to determine our moves. We set target dates for moves, roughly every 5 to 10 days, but there are a few more factors to consider when deciding when to move your pigs to a new paddock. First, we need to consider the age and size of our pigs. Younger, smaller pigs often generate less animal impact, so they don't need to be moved as frequently. Occasionally, our youngest pigs will stay in one paddock for 10 to 12 days before moving. The older, heavier pigs typically need to be moved more often because they disrupt soil much more quickly. As we complete daily chores like cleaning feeders and waters, we monitor a few factors to be sure the paddock is still suitable for pigs. First, we need to look at the soil and vegetation. If the pigs have eaten or trampled most of the available forage in the paddock, it's probably time to move them. If the soil is becoming compacted or especially dry, we will move the pigs to prevent them from further compacting the soil. If the paddock is starting to get muddy, we will move the pigs to dry ground. The timing of paddock moves can be unpredictable, so within a few days of moving the pigs to their new paddock, I'll set up the next paddock so I have the flexibility to move them earlier if I need to. We especially want to prevent mud from building up around feeders and waterers. If the area around a feeder is starting to get muddy, we will either move the feeder to a dry place within the same paddock or go ahead and move our batch of pigs to the next paddock. Of course, we provide muddy wallows for our pigs to stay cool during the warmer months, but these areas should be relatively small so the pigs still have access to dry ground. If your paddock looks like this, it's definitely time to move your pigs. Because the state of the soil is so important to our pasture health, we never want our paddocks to become too dry or too muddy. This is why the weather forecast is a huge determining factor in our pig moves. If we know that it's going to rain every day next week, we can safely predict that our paddocks will get muddy very fast. That means we will need to move our pigs more frequently to stay ahead of the mud. If we know that the next week will be clear and sunny, we can predict that our pigs will not need to move as frequently. However, we still need to check the paddocks every day to monitor forage availability and their impact around feeders and waterers. Deciding when to move your pigs can be tough since there are so many factors to consider. But here's a super easy rule to remember. If you can smell the pigs, they need to move. We always want to move our pigs before we start to smell their waste in the paddock. As you get more comfortable raising pigs, knowing when to move to a new paddock will become almost second nature to you. But until then, make sure your paddock passes a smell test every day.
If you're enjoying this training, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and drop a comment below to let us know.
Now that we know when to move our pigs, let's talk about how to move our pigs.
The way that you move your pigs will depend on the size and layout of your farm, as well as the distance your pigs will need to travel from one paddock to the next. We always want to move our livestock using low-stress animal handling techniques, which I'll demonstrate in just a moment. Pigs have great memories, so if their first few paddock moves are easy and stress-free, they'll learn to be excited about moving to fresh pasture and will be more cooperative along the way. There are two main ways you can move pigs on your farm. Here at Heifer USA, we typically move our pigs all at once, which takes between 30 minutes and an hour. During that time, we will move feeders, waters, shelter, fencing, and our pigs. In a few minutes, we'll give you a step-by-step demonstration of that entire process. If your paddocks are very close together, like these paddocks that are separated by a single fence, then you can choose to move your pigs over the course of 1 to 2 days. This requires an open section of fencing where your pigs can cross from the old paddock into the new one at their own pace. Each time you move a feeder, water, or shelter across that threshold, the pigs will have more incentive to enter the new paddock. This multi-day method gives pigs ample time to adjust to their new surroundings. It may work well for training young pigs on their first few paddock moves. Whether you plan to move your pigs in an hour or over the course of 2 days, you need to make sure you're moving them in safe conditions. We never move our pigs during heavy rain, sleet, or snow. In the winter, we move the pigs at midday when the sun is out and it's warmer. In the summer, we move the pigs early in the morning before it gets hot, or later in the evening once the temperature has gone down. We try to move pigs in the mildest weather possible so the weather doesn't add any unnecessary stress to us or our livestock.
Now that we've determined when and where to move our batch of pigs, let's see how it's done step by step right here at Heifer Ranch.
The first step of a paddock move is making sure the fence line of our next paddock is intact and ready. If you're using temporary fencing like polywire, this includes setting up your perimeter fence and solar charger. We will move the solar charger and grounding rod from our previous paddock to our new one. Then we'll secure the corners with alligator clips that transfer power from one strand of polywire to another. This ensures that our corners are secure and the entire perimeter fence is charged. While we're making these changes, our solar charger is turned off and the fence is not hot. Luckily, the pigs already know the boundaries of their current paddock, so it's very unlikely that they'll get out during the short time where I'm setting up the new paddock. Next, we will walk the entire perimeter of the paddock to check that the electric fence is at the proper height for the pigs, which should be at their nose and eye level. The age and size of your pigs can help determine whether you need one strand or two. We'll make sure that nothing has fallen on the fence or damaged it in any way. And we'll use our Gallagher electric fence fault finder to test that our electric fence is between 3 and 8 kilovolts. As soon as the pigs enter this paddock, they'll start exploring and testing the perimeter limits. So we want to make sure the polywire is charged well before the pigs get there. Once our perimeter fence is in place and we've tested it, I'll create an opening between the two paddocks. I take the poly post at the end of the fence line, bring it inward 180 degrees, and set it parallel with the fence. This makes a nice wide opening that is easy for the pigs to see. If you have a gate between your paddocks, you can use a chain to be sure it stays open during the move. At this point, our pigs will start to enter the new paddock because they know the routine. So I'll need to be careful as I drive the tractor to begin moving the equipment. There are a few things we need to keep on pasture to make sure our pigs are comfortable when we're not around, like bulk feeders, trough waters, and porta-hut shelters. We'll need to move all of these into our new paddock, but I always start with the feeders because the pigs tend to follow the feeders while I move them to the new paddock. Before we start our pig moves, I will hop on the tractor and take a feed transport tote to our grain bins because I already know I'll need to refill at least one feeder in the paddock. Our pig feed bins each hold 14 tons of feed. We have one bin for our swine grower and one for our swine finisher. They make it really easy to refill our bulk feeders and transport totes. We just position the tote under the spout and turn it on so that feed flows out. There are scales under these bins, so when the correct amount of feed has been poured into the transport tote, the spout will shut off automatically. I'll shake out the bottom of the spout to get the last of the feed out. After that, we'll head back to our pig pasture and set the transport tote in our new paddock, so it's easy to refill the bulk feeders once we move them over. We use Osborne bulk feeders, and the best way for us to move them is using the tractor. We'll inspect the feeder to make sure there's no damage or feed buildup. Then we'll pick it up with the tractor and head to the new paddock, where we can refill it with our transport tote. The next thing we need to move is our porta-hut shelters and hay. These are arched metal huts that are 6 feet by 11 feet, and we use these huts to help our pigs stay comfortable on pasture in cold temperatures. In the fall and winter, we'll lay down hay inside and around the huts so they're super warm and cozy for the pigs to bed down in. We moved the shelters using our tractor and these PVC pipes that act as extenders for our tractor forks. We need to make sure these are placed and positioned in a way that provides maximum protection and comfort for the pigs. We want the openings of the huts facing south so the pigs get as much sunlight as possible and they get protection from the cold north winds. If we're moving the pigs to a paddock that's sloped, the openings of the hut need to be facing downhill. Otherwise, they could start filling up with rainwater or mud that slides down the slope. Once we've got our shelters in place, we will go back for the hay bales and place them in front of the huts. This creates an additional space for pigs to bed down and stay warm. Now that we have almost everything set up in our new paddock, it's time to make sure all of our pigs have made the move successfully. Older, bigger pigs will typically move themselves once we open the gate, but younger pigs will need a little more guidance for their first few moves. Here's my best advice on moving those younger pigs. We want to make sure the process is as easy and stress-free as possible, because the pigs will remember these first few moves. We make sure to establish trust between our pigs and their caretakers so we can start our moves by calling them from the opening of the new paddock. If you need some tips on how to build trust with your pigs when they first arrive at your farm, check out this video. Once a few pigs start to move towards you, the majority of the group will follow. We'll round up any stragglers using low-stress animal handling techniques. We will start on the back side of the old paddock, furthest from the gate, and slowly walk toward the gate. We'll wave these red sorting boards to encourage the pigs to move forward. We can also use these to create barriers if any pigs try to run back into the old paddock. In addition to calling the pigs, we also shake this homemade rattler, which is just a metal water bottle filled with BBs. When you stand behind the pigs and shake the bottle, the noise will startle the pigs just enough to push them forward. It may take a few tries to get these last few stragglers into the new paddock, and it always helps to have another person available to assist with the first few moves. After a few paddock moves, your pigs will get used to the routine and it will become easier to move them by yourself without the use of handling aids. Now that the pigs are all in the new paddock, we need to secure the perimeter by either closing the gate or closing our poly wire line. As soon as the pigs enter the new paddock, they're going to start exploring and testing the boundaries of their new paddock. Even though we still have some supplies to move, we need to go ahead and close the fence to keep the pigs secure. Otherwise, the pigs may try to return to the old, familiar paddock because they know that's their home. The very last piece of infrastructure we'll move into the new paddock is our waterers. As you empty and refill your waterers, the pigs will hear the sound of the running water and they'll want to follow it. If they start playing in the water or mud in the old paddock, they'll be distracted and difficult to move to the new one. We build our own waterers here at the ranch, and we love how easy they are to move out on pasture. If you want to build your own, check out this quick tutorial. We use one 50-gallon water for every 50 pigs, so we often have 2 or 3 waterers in each paddock. First, we'll empty the waterer and clean it out using the scrub brush in our pig toolkit. We'll inspect it to make sure that there are no leaks or damage, which we can quickly repair with our pig waterer fix-it kit. We need to move our waterers to the new paddock in spots that are easily accessible for our pigs and then refill them. Our waterers use Job float valves, so we'll hook up a hose to the back of the tank, then the float will shut off the water flow when it reaches the right height. This is a super easy way to make sure our pigs are getting fresh, clean water all the time, not just when we come down for chores. Another way that we keep our water clean is by placing our tanks on the edge of the paddock and running poly wire across the back of the waterer. This allows multiple pigs to drink from the water tank, but prevents them from climbing into the water or chewing on the water hoses. There are a couple of additional things we do to keep our pigs comfortable on pasture, depending on what season we're in. In the warmer months, one of the first things we do in a new paddock is start a wallow to help the pigs stay cool. I'll take a hose that's hooked up to our water supply and loop it over a tree branch to start the wallow. When the pigs hear the water splashing in the new paddock, they'll want to come investigate it, so this is an easy and low-stress way to speed up the paddock moves.
After you successfully move your pigs into their new paddock, you'll want to give them some time to settle into their new environment. This is a great opportunity to do a bit of pasture management in the paddock the pigs have just left, to make sure you're taking full advantage of the animal impact in that area.
As soon as the pigs are in their new paddock, I will check for any areas of damage in the old paddock. If I find any large holes, I will fill them and smooth them out so our paddock is as level as possible. The most important part of aftercare for used paddocks is seeding the area with appropriate forage in order to cover the ground, prevent soil erosion, and continue building organic matter in the soil. Almost any seasonally appropriate forage will work, but we try to pick inexpensive seeds that provide good ground cover. In the warm season, we seed buckwheat, brown-top millet, and clover. In the cool season, we seed ryegrass, wheat, and more clover. There are a couple of ways to seed used paddocks. The simplest way is to distribute seed by hand, scattering your seed mixture across the entire paddock. This will take you a while, but it doesn't require any equipment or infrastructure. If you want to make seeding faster, check out how we use a no-till seed drill to plant cover crops here at Heifer USA. My favorite way to seed the pine tree pastures is to attach a drag harrow and a broadcast seeder to the tractor. As I drive through the paddock, the drag harrow gently disrupts the soil and makes it easier for the seeds I'm broadcasting to germinate. It's really convenient to use both attachments simultaneously so I can seed paddocks quickly. Once we've tended to the used paddocks, we leave it empty for 45 to 60 days to allow for forage regrowth and environmental healing.
Practicing rotational grazing with pastured pigs should be easy, and to simplify your paddock moves even further, we've created the Heifer USA Pastured Pig Resource Guide. Complete with chore checklists, progress charts, paddock move records, and more, this document will help you keep your animals and your land healthy. Click the link in the description of this video to download a free copy of this super valuable resource. Subscribe to our channel and keep learning about pastured pork production. Check out this video on raising pigs in the winter, or this one, where Christine shares her most important tools for pastured pig production.